Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. For the viewer from all over the world, a very warm welcome to the third edition of the International Conference on Sustainability Education. Day one, we begin with this grand opening ceremony. As you all know, that this is third edition of the international conference, which we began in 2019 for the first time. Great success with over 700 participants from 445 countries. And we had overwhelming response. In fact, over 70 papers, some 25 sessions, and many parallel sessions, plenary sessions. And it saw the sustainability professionals from all over the world. We were going to have ICSE 2 on a bigger scale in 2019, but because of COVID, we had to curtail some of the events and we went online as have become now normal. So we had a series of ICSE forums, very focused forums. One was during the World Environment Day, where we had principals conclave. Then we had a population sustainability forum. And of course, ICSE 2020, last year, again, we organized on 9th and 10th September. First day was on the India's new national education policy. And second day, we focused on the youth for sustainability. And we had a program, Youth for Earth, in association with Climate Reality Project and Earth Day Network. And 15 of the selected partners from those youth enthusiasts from all over the world, they made their presentations in the second day of ICSE 2. So we are now in 2021. Of course, we have not gone at the usual contact sessions, but this is the platform, because it's much improved, the state-of-the-art technology, which I think you all who have joined here so far, we could see around 500 participants. And this is also being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. So I think we have close to 1,000 who are watching this live. So this is a great event, and we welcome. We have our partners, UNESCO, UNEP. We have speakers from UNDP, IUCN, Climate Reality Project, Center for Environment Education, WWF, TERI, FEE, Foundation for Environment Education, Copenhagen-based, Wildlife Trust of India, Population Foundation of India, NIOS, National Institute of Open Schooling, one of the world's largest open schooling platform. They are our partner, IUCN, and many more. These are very renowned partners, and along with them, we have some great personalities. In, I think, forthcoming sessions, you will witness them. So that is what we call it. We are going to showcase you the power of sustainability education. So we have today Mr. Pradeep Burman, founder chairperson of Mobius Foundation, to officially inaugurate this showcase session, Power of Sustainability Education. Mr. Burman is the driving force behind the whole ICSE. It was his idea and vision to support and promote sustainability education as a key factor in a societal transformation for a better future. His passion and drive towards environmental sustainability has led to several path-breaking initiatives within the Mobius Foundation, such as Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet, Project Aakar on Population Stabilization, Sanjeevani for restoration of ecosystems, World Environment School and Gyan Anant Vidyalaya for holistic learning about sustainability and environment, and many more. He's also trustee of the Climate Reality Project. So we would like to request you, Mr. Berman, to formally open the conference as well as various exposition and initiatives within this large event. So over to you, Mr. Berman.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Booch. I think some of you have already been told of our first September 2019 conference for sustainability education. We had a second meeting also that was in 2020, in which was a first virtual meeting for the conference. And now the third one, which is even more necessary than was ever before, because we have seen that we are not close enough yet to the goals which were enunciated in the Paris conference, and we had to reach some position by 2030. But we are nowhere close to the targets even in 2021. So it has become necessary to actually bring a greater effort into mitigating the effects of the climate change or those effects of human actions which are destroying the planet. It is necessary today to excite what is a mass movement, such as the one some of you might have heard of. It is called the XR movement in the United Kingdom. This means the mass of the youth is protesting against the effects of climate change and the effects of our actions destroying the planet, and is urging the government to take as seriously the destruction of the planet, which is for the future generation, as they are taking for the COVID. They have seen how governments, when they act, how the COVID has been tackled, and it is coming into our control finally. So something like the XR movement has to go on in the United States, has to go on in China, has to go on in India, to get the governments to take a more serious view of that the planet is being destroyed and will leave nothing for the future generations. So I declare now the conference and exhibition formally open, and wish you all to have successful deliberations and conclusions. I trust in your support, in your commitment, in your enthusiasm and wisdom to make meaningful changes happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berman. We have a small film.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय तज्ज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Thank you so much. The conference now is formally open, and this till 3 o'clock, you have plenty of opportunities. They will be going to play one of the films which will give you some idea about past ICSE and also about Mobius Foundation and all other partners that will keep on flashing throughout the session. But you have the freedom to go to the exhibits, to the poster and paper halls, to the resource center. You can also click to have your photo. The selfie booth there is, you can have as a memorial. You can just click your photo and there will be caption of ICSE, the logo, as well as, of course, I am at ICSE, all those kind of very interesting. So you explore this till we go to the technical part of this ICSE at 3 o'clock. Till then, do enjoy all the facilities offered by this wonderful platform. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Berman, for your insightful thoughts and for opening this. It's a good augur, good beginning, and we hope that we will achieve the cherished objectives and all those your vision that you have set in for all of us. Thank you so much for your kind words. Hello, everyone. Very warm welcome. Of course, it's a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We have a lot of people from all over the world. I just saw there are around 30 people from Philippines, Far East. Similarly, almost from every continent, we have the people joining this international conference on sustainability education, the third version of it, third edition. We had a grand opening an hour back with Mr. Pradeep Berman, chairman of Mobius Foundation. And now we are into the main technical session. And it's my duty to extend to you a very warm welcome to all the distinguished delegates, learned speakers, panelists, session coordinators, exhibitors, poster and paper presenters, and of course, each one of you who have joined us today virtually to this third edition of ICSE. I especially welcome our chief guest today, Shri Atul Bagai, Director, UNEP India Office. In fact, we had requested Honorable Minister, but he had to go out of Delhi. So he had just sent in his message. He has sent all the best to his best wishes for the success of deliberations of the conference. And he is keen to hear about the outcome of 2 days deliberations. We also welcome Mr. TERI Spar. He has, of course, we will be hearing him just now, and also in one of the plenaries tomorrow. Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai, with whom I had privilege of working for more than 2 decades at Center of Environment Education. We were just talking. He is the moving force, I would say, behind this whole ICSE concept. He is also the chairperson of its technical advisory committee. Whatever you see today, all those ideas is his, as well as Mr. Pradeep Burman, another figure who opened up the conference at 2 o'clock. He is away from Delhi. He was in London and now in Dubai on his way to Delhi. But his keen interest and enthusiasm has made all of us so vigorous and so enthusiastic to take forward this ICSE, the whole concept. So let me put this into context. Actually, 2019 we thought to have a modest conference to begin with, but it ended up during the preparation that there were some 5 UN agencies, close to a dozen international agencies, all those, and of course, around 24, means I was just counting total 36 partners, national agencies, and all the names, all the stalwarts in the field of sustainability, environment, climate change, biodiversity, you name, from India, from abroad. We had a galaxy, 40 exhibits, 70 papers, those different sessions, many poster presentations, plenaries. So it was really a great conference, I would say. We are coming out its proceedings. The Cambridge Scholar it's in final phases because of they want quality and all those issues are there. Otherwise, we wanted to release it this time. But all the publications are in the information center of this, on the portal of this conference. So this is really, 2019 was a great beginning. 2020, because of COVID, we did it virtually in the form of ICSE forum, 2 forums. One was on the World Environment Day with the Principals Conclave, and on the biodiversity conservation, 2 issues were there. And the second forum was on World Population Day on population sustainability. Then we had ICSE 2020. First day was devoted to National Education Policy of India, which was launched in July last year. And second day we devoted to the Youth for Earth, that campaign we launched in association with Climate Reality Project and Earth Day Network. This year we thought we will have the ICSE third, maybe in a blended manner, in a mixed way, like virtual as well as the real conference, but we thought to use the technology. So this is what you can see, the state of the art technology, and we are into it. And we thought that this year is the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. So we thought ecosystem restoration is should be one of the themes. And we have UNEP launched this whole decade, and we have UNEP head Shri Atul Bagai with us. So we will be hearing him just now. And the other second day is on the climate literacy. In fact, you all know that we are going to, world community is going to meet in Glasgow from October 31st to November 11, and climate change summit COP26, and which is called as Make or Break for the Planet. Of course, before that we had ICC report, which has been termed as Code Red for Humanity. So those all contexts are there. That's why we thought that we should have this conference on these two issues, focused on these two issues, but we have 11 parallel sessions, as you can see in the program schedule. And they are, of course, keeping in mind these two issues, they are deliberating on various aspects, ranging from school education to ecotourism, to circular economy, to population, many issues in 11 sessions, and plethora of themes as well as experts. Another occasion I think I would like just to mention here was the World Conference on ESD, where ESD for 2030 was launched in the month of May. And the theme was Learn for Our Planet. That was hashtag very common on the social media. And UNESCO, which did a survey before that, it found that curricula all over the world, they did a curriculum analysis and found that only 50 countries they have around some kind of mention of sustainability or climate in their curricula, and 19% speak about biodiversity, and less than, of course, sustainability mention is very less. So they have launched this, one of the recommendations during the launch of the ESD 2030 is that all the education system must include sustainability education as a core component at all levels by 2025. So that is one that we should keep in mind. And in fact, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, she said that we need sustainability education not to be for the privileged one, but accessible to all the people. And that is what the success of ESD or sustainability education will be. And this will bring closer to the achievement of all the SDGs. So that was a great statement by Angela Merkel. And again, of course, there was a statement that fight against climate begins with education, with the schools. And that is why we thought that this year's sustainability education, we must dedicate it as a hope for the future, this 2021 ICSE. With that brief introduction, of course, there are so many things to say, and I think you will experience. This is a very different kind of conference. You can experience all those while roaming through our portal. But I would straightway go to our chief guest, Mr. Atul Bagai, Country Head, United Nations Environment Program, to open this technical session of the conference. Mr. Bagai, of course, he is leading the United Nations Environment Program in India. And in fact, when he came to India, heading the United Nations Environment Program in 2016, he has decisively led from the front to fulfill the mandate of the UNEP across the country on the climate change, chemicals, waste and air quality, environmental governance, resource efficiency, environment under review, many more. In fact, I had the privilege to work. We did together a project on the transboundary conservation of biodiversity, and it was interesting. In fact, we had developed that project and hope that in days to come, it might take some shape. But before that, he was in Uttar Pradesh, where we had worked closely. He is from a career diplomat, I would say, in that way, because he is part of the IAS fraternity. And he has worked in the Ministry of Environment, Forest, as director Ozone, and before joining UNEP in 2000. So we are really privileged to welcome Mr. Atul Bagai. And over to you, Mr. Bagai.
Thank you, Rambutji. And I would first like to thank the Mobius Foundation for inviting me to deliver the keynote address for this year's workshop with the theme of Education for Ecosystem Restoration. Before I start on the subject, I would firstly like to thank Barman Saab for the forward-looking and visionary initiative that he has taken to not only set up this foundation, but also make it such a huge initiative over the last few years. I remember, as Rambutji was saying, when I joined in 2017, Rambutji had come and visited me in my office as an ex-UN colleague and was talking about starting this annual event, and he was seeking UNEP support. And as he said, we had worked before when I was in Uttar Pradesh, and I had no hesitation to lend support from UNEP on this. And I'm very happy to see that in the last 3 years, we've been associated. This initiative has become so visionary, so huge, and addressing some of the key issues which are grappling the country and the world. And one of the reasons why we chose to support also was the other speaker today, Kartikeya Sarabhai, with whom I've been working for the last more than 2 decades. And Kartikeya, I still remember that amazing decade of environment education event that you had organized in Ahmedabad, I think about 10, 12 years back.
That's right.
Where you had invited me to be part of one of the panels with some other key people. And I'm so glad to be again associated with Kartikeya Bhai on this environment education issue, because he in India has been really spearheading this work over the last almost 3 decades. And it's his efforts that this issue has become the center issue in environmental governance and environmental mitigation. I'm also happy to be sharing the dais with TERI, whom the whole world knows, and I am feeling so proud and honored to be sharing the dais with him. Rambutji mentioned about the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and this was launched on 5th June 2021, and so the next 10 years, the whole focus would be at scaling up ecosystem restoration efforts and recognizing that there has never been a more urgent need to revive the damaged ecosystems than now. And I say this because of the scientific evidence that has come over the last few decades, that the present pandemics that the whole world is facing, one of the large reasons is also the ecosystem losses or the ecosystem devastation that we all have done over the last almost 3 to 4 decades. And I think this was very aptly highlighted by our Secretary General in one of his addresses to the Columbia University recently, that there is enough scientific evidence to indicate that the extreme pressures that we have put on the planet has led to monumental repercussions of what he called the triple planetary crisis, that is of climate change, of biodiversity loss and pollution that we are witnessing today. He also said that it is almost like we are waging a war against nature and that we need to declare peace, a ceasefire and a peace with nature. Otherwise, the fury of nature is something that we will not be able to withstand and survive. There have been many assessments, and I won't go into these reports. The 6th assessment report of the IPCC, which came out recently, the IPBES 2019 Global Assessment Report, then the State of the World's Tree Report, which estimated that 30% of the world's tree species face extinction. But The underlying factor is that such assessment shows that the health of ecosystems on which we and all other life form depends is deteriorating more rapidly than ever, affecting the very foundations of our economies, of our livelihood, of our food security, of health and quality of life worldwide, and not only in just a few countries. So I think we should understand, each and every one should understand that ecosystems forms the fabric that continues to support all life on Earth. This is a very simple message, but very difficult to understand and very difficult to convey to the people on this Earth, on this planet. And they should realize that the healthier they are, the healthier the planet and its people would be. And I think this is the key message that not only this conference, but the whole narrative, the whole work on environmental education needs to focus on the next 10 years. There are many solutions that are being proposed. There are many alternatives that are being proposed. There are major conventions that are going to be negotiated during the next 6 to 8 months. The Rio conventions, the CBD, the UN COP coming in Glasgow. And I think one of the underlying themes of all these negotiations that are going on are that maintaining and restoring ecological integrity is the first goal of not only the post-2020 framework on biodiversity, but even the UNFCCC will need to look at their 5 priority areas where they need to drive action. From the global, I would like to now talk a little bit about where does India stand in all this? What is India's view? What is India's stand on this? And then I would speak a little bit on why is environmental education so important for all of us? Why are we organizing a conference like this today? And here I would specifically mention that India holding the presidency of 2 COPs, the United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification and also the Convention on Migratory Species. And this is a huge responsibility that India is holding simultaneously right now till the next year. And certainly that is also because it is emerging as a leader in restoration with the commitments it has propounded. It joined the Bonn Challenge in 2015 with a pledge to restore 21 million hectares. This was raised to a target of 26 million hectares by 2030 during the UNCCD COP in September 2019. Similarly, some major decisions were taken in the Convention on Migratory Species, and recently 2 big missions on dolphin and lions, Asiatic lion, have been launched. So I think the government is taking the right steps and making the right noises. But I think the government needs to do also a lot more on how this will be achieved. And that's where I think, given the theme of this year's ICSE, that is Education for Ecosystems Restoration, I would like to draw attention to the strategy for the decade on ecosystem restoration, where 2 of the barriers to achieving this large-scale restoration that the Government of India and the civil society in India are wanting to achieve in the coming years by 2030, which is the decade of action, I think they are directly related to education, 2 of the barriers. And I would like to highlight these 2 barriers because that should set the tone for how to mitigate or how to address these barriers. One of the barriers, certainly, as all of you know, is limited awareness across societies of the considerable negative effects of ecosystem degradation. And I think it also gets linked to lack of awareness on the nexus between environment and health. And this nexus needs to be understood by everyone, that unhealthy ecosystem would lead to unhealthy lives for all human beings. And the profound societal benefits that accrue with restoration will only come if we are able to spread this awareness across societies on this nexus between environment and health. The second barrier, I feel, and I have so many experts sitting here who would know better, is the limited technical knowledge and capacity of national governments, local civil society organizations, and private companies in designing and implementing large-scale ecosystem restoration initiatives. And I think that's where, if India wants to achieve a 26 million hectare land restoration target in the next 8 to 9 years, I think these two barriers need to be addressed and catch the bull by its horn squarely before these benefits can start accruing to the society. So, of course, along with these enabling policies, there is a need to increase both public and private finance. Needless to say that these are very important elements. But I think environment education, raising the educational standards on environmental issues is certainly something that is one of the most important parts of this narrative that we are talking about in this conference today. I would like to now conclude that ecosystem restoration, which is the backbone of this decade that has been launched, needs both transformative action and mobilization of community at large. They both need to go hand in hand. And I personally feel mobilization of community at large is the most important element and the critical element in this fight which we are taking forward in restoring our nature in the coming years. It certainly needs to be supported with the transformation in outlook, in behavior, in policies, in public-private partnerships. But education is a critical component of successfully working towards any of these commitments. UNEP has been ramping up our efforts in sensitizing and motivating people of the benefits of restoration. We are launching also certain elements at a digital level during this decade. We have a very successful Tide Turners Challenge on plastics for school children and universities, where we are working very closely with Karthike and his organization and WWF. And those kind of initiatives show us how important environmental education is. And my last comment is that, and I conclude that success of the decade would depend on the idea of restoration entering into public discourse. That's very vital. It should be mainstreamed in government policies and driving the individual behavior change. And I wish and I hope that the ICSE, which has taken on the theme of education for ecosystem restoration this year, would play a very large and important role in the coming years in this particular effort that is going to be made. And today, this two-day conference, we see that the foundations can be laid in scaling up restoration efforts through the decade. And UNEP would be very happy to be associated with the Mobius Foundation, with CEE, and with all other partners who are here to see that all collectively we can take these efforts forward for making the decade a useful decade for preserving the nature and for preventing more harm to the human beings that we have inflicted on ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atul Bagai. I think you are a true leader. You underline the importance of education for ecosystem restoration, particularly, in fact, when world is at war with nature. And so it is so important to make peace with nature. I think you emphasized on that. Further, you mentioned about one of the barriers is about the, of course, nexus between the health of ecosystems and the human health is so intricately linked. All this is proved by the COVID, which is of zoonotic origin. The other one is the limited knowledge of all the sectors, all the stakeholders, not only the government, but the lack of awareness about ecosystems that transcends across the stakeholders and sectors. So that is where I think the role of educators and particularly sustainability educators comes there. So thank you so much. With that, we move to the next speaker, the keynote address by Mr. TERI, founder and director, Earth Overshoot. He is a Philadelphia-based ecologist, environmental activist, and documentary filmmaker. He left the corporate world to research, write, and produce 8 Billion Angels, a documentary that exposes overpopulation as the upstream cause of all environmental emergencies. TERI founded and directs Earth Overshoot, a nonprofit designed to promote public and private action to make ecological limits central to all decision making. He lectures on issues of sustainability to students, investor groups, and civic organizations, and regularly writes opinion pieces for a variety of environmental publications. His latest film, 8 Billion Angels, was screened twice during the 2021 One Earth Film Festival. I would like to invite Mr. TERI to deliver his keynote address.
Good afternoon, and thank you to you, Dr. Rambuji, and to the Mobius Foundation for inviting me to take part in this vitally important event that truly embodies the Foundation's mission of encouraging, educating, and adopting practices which preserve the ecosystem. As the executive director of the nonprofit Earth Overshoot, my role is to lead our organization to put sustainability at the center of all personal and public decision-making to achieve a world with both human well-being and flourishing biodiversity. Our nonprofit, Earth Overshoot, was inspired by the experience we had filming the documentary 8 Billion Angels. We set out to make that film that tells the truth about the conflict between the size of our global population and the sustainability of our planet. And although we filmed all over the world, the heart and soul of the documentary truly lies in India. That is where, with the help of Dr. Rabia Matai, a senior vice president of the Global Program Policy and Planning for the Catholic Medical Mission Board, she helped us. We met people like Dr. Suraj Pachari, a community health physician and researcher who has spent decades working to improve family planning and reproductive health in some of India's most vulnerable and marginalized communities. We also sat down with Lok Sabha MP Shashi Tharoor, who humanized the intractable social and environmental challenges facing India, as well as offering inspiration based on the progress made in his home state of Kerala, where, as many of you know, girls' education, women's empowerment, and declining fertility rates have put the region on a more likely path to sustainability. I don't know if you have it queued up, but we'd love to share the trailer with you right now, if that's possible. But if not, we certainly have it for the session that is the breakout. Here we go.
One of the things my mother always taught me, when you borrow something, you always give it back in better shape than when you got it. And we're not doing that.
The Earth tells us that it's in trouble in a bunch of different ways.
Climate change,
Mass starvation,
Ecological disaster.
we're seeing the effects all over this planet. The oceans are sick.
The air is unbreathable.
Farmland is turning to desert.
We are in the process of killing ourselves.
We are trashing the planet. Why are we doing that?
Population growth, it's an overwhelming problem.
The Earth is just plain ravaged by too many people consuming too many resources.
The numbers will continue to grow.
8 billion isn't sustainable.
It's been ramping up and ramping up. We need to turn things around.
There is no excuse to bury our heads in the sand.
Action is the antidote to despair.
It's not hopeless. There are many things we can do. We know we can change societies. It's a matter of people making the commitment.
We don't have the time to waste.
We still have coral reefs.
We've still got forests around the world. Now's the time to save them. If we continue like we are, they're going to be lost.
We need to figure out how to live in harmony with planet Earth. It's for not only my grandson, but it's for all of yours.
The hope is that people will realize we're all in it together.
Every morning when I get up, I have hope.
I hope you'll enjoy that. It's a truly global film and with a global impact, and it's thrilling to share it with you all here at the foundation. 8 Billion Angels is the first feature-length film to depict how unsustainable population growth, adds to the struggles and challenges average people face in their daily lives. Everything from the lack of access to clean drinking water to air pollution that causes chronic lung disease, and the diminishing crop yields experienced by farmers and fishermen around the world. Making this film not only confirmed the scope of the problem, but the indisputable need for a new approach to solving it. Everything that we as a global society have been attempting to do to fix the environment for the past 50 years hasn't worked. And by all accounts, every symptom is getting worse, not better. And unless and until we change our way of thinking, we will not solve this crisis. Many in the film world, many in the environmental community and in government have feared discussing this topic, despite knowing the facts. This film was meant to break that silence, to bring this subject out of the shadows and confront it, openly, honestly, and sensitively. It shares real hope and real solutions, offering an alternative vision to the future of better human health, economic prosperity, and social justice, and a path toward restoring the natural world and achieving genuine long-term sustainability. My hope is that everyone in India and around the world sees this film, embraces its message, and I thank you again for inviting me, and I look forward to the next 2 days of this amazing conference.
Thank you very much, TERI, for your very interesting and enlightening keynote speech. I'm sorry that you have to keep yourself awake very early. It's in Philadelphia, but salute to your spirit. Not only today, but in the dry run of this conference, you were, I think, one of the constant features available for us. And your film is really very revealing. As you say, it breaks the silence to bring this subject to not only real solutions it offers, but also brings about, like we talk about, even IPCC, which has come out with this new report, doesn't talk much about this issue. Mobius Foundation's chairperson, Mr. Pradeep Berman, has been hammering on this since many years now, about the issue of population and how it is impacting each and every aspect of our environment. We also have, as I said earlier, we had this this series of television series on mission sustainability, population versus planet. We will have that in tomorrow's one of the sessions. So I think I was amazed when you just first contacted me on LinkedIn, I remember, about these issues. I was really, really fascinated by the kind of enthusiasm that you have shown and the way this 8 billion angels have come out. So thank you so much. We will hear you more tomorrow as well. For now, so many, we are really grateful. Now we turn over to Kartik Bhai, Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai, Founder Director, Center for Environment Education in Ahmedabad. I had the privilege to work with Kartik Bhai, as I said, for almost 14 years together. In fact, it's a fabulous office. Karthik bhai, I hope we have 40 offices across the country and almost a half dozen offices internationally abroad. And in fact, primary focus of Center for Environment Education under his leadership has been greening of India's formal education system and initiatives for biodiversity, climate change, many kind of educations combined together. This is what we call as sustainability education. So I remember long back, means when I was there, we were having a World Bank supported project on greening of curriculum of India that was implemented 16 states. Very successful program. So Karthik Bhai is one of the world's leading environment educators and a dedicated community builder. He was educated in Cambridge, proposed in natural sciences, and went on to do postgraduate work in development communication at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He's a trustee of Sabarmati Ashram Preservation Memorial Trust. And this is one of the, I think every visitor from heads of the governments, they visit this ashram, one of the symbols of India's composite culture and peace. Mr. Sarabhai is also a member of many committees set up by Government of India and other organizations. Recipient of 2016 International Brandwein Medal for Community Service and Education. IUCN CEC also recognized his work. And in fact, he is recipient of Padma Shri by Government of India, one of the highest civilian awards. This is bestowed to him by the President of India. So I would not go into detail. There are many moments we have. The only other thing that I would like to mention is that this whole ICSE means he is one of the pioneers. He was the driving force behind this. When I met him after my superannuation from UNESCO, I contacted him and he very readily agreed to this idea. And he is also the chairperson of the technical advisory committee of ICSE, giving many ideas and advancing this agenda throughout. So may I request you, Karthik Bhai, to deliver your address.
Thank you very much, Rambuj, and for all those kind words. And Pradeep ji for the whole initiative of Mobius, which I have seen carefully over the last several years. As Rambuj says, we had a technical advisory committee, and most of the people are here today in the audiences. And this has really truly been a joint effort of several organizations and individuals. And I had the privilege of chairing the technical advisory committee, but I think it's important to note how, as it should be in environmental education, how these organizations can work together and come together not only for these 2 days events, but the time leading up to it and leading beyond it, and for which I think Rambuj ji and Pradeep ji should be complimented for the spirit of this. I think a lot has been said and we are running late, so I recognize that and I'll be brief. It was said how education is at the foundation of this, and many people do ask me that India in 1991, the Supreme Court of India said that environmental education needs to be a compulsory part of our formal system, and then 2003 again it was restated. So we today have a generation of people, young people, who've gone through some form of environmental education. We ourselves have been in this since the center was formed in 84. We've been in it for several years. And one question people are asking is, do you see a difference? The fact that people have gone through environmental education, we had this whole decade of education for sustainable development, and again linked it even closer with development issues. Has it made that type of difference that you expect? And I think it's a question which all of us as environmental educators do need to ask, that what difference has it made? There is no doubt that young people today are much more aware than what was several years ago. Many of them are doing things. They do actions. And TERI, I don't know whether you know about this, but there was something called the handprint, the ecological handprint, which came out of a school in India, which represented what one does, what action one takes in transformation. And I think your film said action is the antidote of all despair. That was a sentence out of your film just now. And action is critical. But I just wanted to add one more thing here, which is what we have learned from COVID also, that it is not just action, but action required to a scale at which it makes a difference. I think we have now reached a stage where there's a large number of people in the community and the population who are doing what they think they can. They might shun a plastic bag, they might segregate waste, they might use less energy, they might plant more trees, green their environments. A lot of things are being done. But the point is there is a crisis. And I think what we learned in COVID, as we dealt with it as a planet, as a whole, is that if you want to take action, you needed to come up to a certain level. You might need to get 80% of the population vaccinated before it will have an effect. We need to come out with some such parameters. We need to know that, yes, we all want to take action, we all want to be part, but it's not just so that we feel good. We need action so that it makes that critical difference and reverses this triple crisis which has been mentioned, the climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. Pollution might be out of those three perhaps the simplest because it's so visible. Plastic pollution is something which we are working with WWF and UNEP on, and several other young people. So I don't want to say much just now because we all are waiting for the breakaway wonderful sessions which have been planned. But basically want to say that I think we need to treat it like a global issue now, a global problem. And my action has to fit in. My school's action or my community's action needs to fit in at a scale at which we can reverse this. We can stop it. And we need indicators. SDGs are certain indicators, but we need perhaps clearer indicators or fewer indicators which everyone can see. We should be able to see that we don't want to see trash, for instance, all over India as just one country, or the amount which is going into oceans from all over the world. We don't want to see it from next January. Can we do something over even 3 months or 4 months? And I think taking on campaigns like this, and I think therefore these conferences are very useful in us working together and using the tremendous power of environmental education and educational sustainable development to make that transformation which is required. Thank you, Rambuj, and look forward to a wonderful conference.
Thank you very much, Karthik Bhai. I think really inspiring words. Power of education, and that to power sustainability. I think we are trying to manifest it. All the delegates, they will witness. In fact, even this session was very powerful. We had a very powerful beginning. And I do endorse your view that, in fact, working together and talking together particularly is a wonderful thing. And beyond that, in fact, the issue that you highlighted about what difference we the educators have made so far. So, of course, you gave the example of Hand Friends, which is, of course, all about action towards sustainability. And there have been several, we can say, examples here and there. But unless we weave them together, and as you said, bring to the scale, to the level where you can have and I think this networking concept is very important in that. A network of environment educators, and they can bring together consolidated or coordinated action to make a narrative, whether it is ecosystem restoration, population stabilization, climate literacy, all those areas. We would look forward to your guidance and support in all these. Of course, that's always forthcoming. So thank you so much. Now, in fact, we have plenty of time for the plenary, these breakaway sessions, I would just like to brief you about the sessions for today. We have 5 sessions, and session 1 on school education. You can go to the portal. Of course, all the speakers, they have got their links, individual links for each session, but all others, they are free to go into any of the sessions. Like session 1 is school education, which is being done by Center for Environment Education and Wildlife Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF India. Then session 2 is IT-based solutions for education. Again, WWF India and Sashakta Bharat and NIOS. You all might be knowing National Institute of Open Schooling is one of the world's biggest open schooling platform. So they will be in this session 2. Session 3, role of youth. It's one of the most powerful. I think I saw there were a lot of interest for this session. A lot of people have registered for the session. TERI, CEE, TERI Policy Center, Climate Reality Project, WWF, all these organizations are in the role of youth. Of course, Mobius is all across in all these sessions. Session 4 is climate literacy leads to green jobs. Very interesting session. Earth Day Network and earthday.org. These Earth Day Network, Dr. Karuna Singh, she heads the Asia Pacific unit of Earth Day Network. She was very, very enthusiastic about this session, and she have brought almost around half a dozen experts from all over the world to the really very interesting session this should be. Then finally, session 5, education for promoting sustainable tourism in coastal area. Again, a Foundation for Environment Education and Center for Environment Education. Very interesting session, and particularly this Blue Flag initiative, very interesting because India's 8 coasts have been designated as Blue Flag, and that was this designation was in a ceremony headed by the Union Environment Minister, I suppose, in the month of July. So these 5 sessions you are free to navigate through, and there is some time, still some 5-6 minutes left, and let me take this opportunity to thank each one of you. Kartik Bhai, TERI Spare, and Mr. Atul Bagai, Mr. Pradeep Burman. He has been, he gave a very inspiring speech in the opening session, and he will be there throughout. I think tomorrow's population session, I thought he will speak up there, which is close to his heart. As I said, this whole mission sustainability, what we name the major population stabilization campaign, and on ground this implementation that we are doing in this Uttar Pradesh. Kartik, where you mentioned about this to scaling up some of the actions. In fact, this population one we started with 2 districts. We are going to scale up in 8 high TFR districts of UP. In fact, problem lies there only in some of those 8 or 10, some 10 blocks particularly in all these 8 districts, close to around some 60-70 blocks, you can say, where we will be intensively working during next few years. So that will be another area where we will bring action to the scale. So there are several such initiatives, and we will together work on these areas. So for now, thank you so much, everyone. And in another 5 minutes, we join the breakout rooms. One information for all the session leaders: you have to be very, very prompt, like you be on time, 16:30 hours, 4:30 India time, this ends. these breakout session, and then session leaders will come to the plenary to present their findings. So they will, if you come early, maybe 5 minutes early, then you can consolidate your findings for presentation in the plenary. So please take care of that. And of your session, every session coordinator is in charge, supported by rapporteurs. There are 7 volunteers from these young reporters for environment, YRE, which CE and FE has very kindly trained them, and they will be interviewing some of the delegates and also sitting in each of these parallel sessions along with Mobius colleagues. And they will also be bringing out the gist of the sessions in the form of a newsletter and of course the wrap up tomorrow morning. So I think we all must give a big hand to these young reporters as well. They are very enthusiastically participating, and I think they have interviewed quite a few people by now. So thank you very much, and see you in respective parallel rooms for the parallel sessions.